Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? We're tackling Titan this time.
Saturn's largest moon.
Right. Specifically, its atmosphere.
Always a fascinating topic.
Absolutely. And you guys have sent in some seriously cool research on it from the Southwest Research Institute.
Published just last week.
Yeah, February 2nd, 2025. It's called Scientists Unlock the Secrets of Titan's Dense Atmosphere.
Catchy title.
It is.
Oh.
So let's unpack this a little. What makes Titan's atmosphere so special, so unique, and how are scientists trying to figure out, how it keeps going? Because there's this whole puzzle about its replenishment. And again, this walking on Titan would feel like scuba diving here. We'll get to that.
You will?
So first things first, Titan's atmosphere. Super dense, way denser than Earth's.
1.5 times denser, to be exact.
Wow, 1.5. But Titan's way smaller than Earth. And its gravity is way weaker.
Yeah, it's kind of baffling. Why is it so dense? That's a big question. And then, how has it stayed that way for so long?
Okay, so big mystery. Now, we know this atmosphere is mostly nitrogen.
95%, give or take.
Okay, 95% nitrogen. And then we've got a decent amount of methane in there, too.
Right, methane's important here. Because without some way to replenish it, it would basically disappear.
Wait, disappear?
Yeah, gone. Zapped away by sunlight.
Oh, like broken down.
Exactly. And we're talking within 30 million years, which, sounds like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things.
Logically speaking.
Yeah, geologically speaking, it's a blink. Oh. And then no more methane, and Titan's atmosphere freezes solid. Poof.
Okay, so the clock is ticking. Which brings us to this new research from the Southwest Research Institute, or SwRI.
Right, they partnered with the Carnegie Institution for Science for this.
Okay, a powerful duo. So what were they trying to do?
Well, they started with this idea. What if the answer lies in Titan's core? Deep down inside.
Like the rocky core.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So they set up these experiments to simulate the conditions they think exist in Titan's core.
Wait, hold on. They simulated a moon's core in a lab.
Pretty much. Took some organic materials, stuff similar to what they believe is in Titan's core, and then they heated them up and pressurized them.
Like a pressure cooker for a moon.
Kind of. They wanted to mimic that intense, extreme environment deep inside.
Okay, so they're cooking up a moon core stew. What happened next?
Well, they ended up producing nitrogen and methane gas.
No way.
Yep, the key components of Titan's atmosphere.
Wow, so it's like the moon is exhaling its own atmosphere?
It really does seem that way. The gases are being released from those organic materials way down deep, and then, boom, atmosphere.
Okay, that's incredible. But is that just like a guess? Or is there more to back this up?
Oh, there's more. Remember the Cassini-Huygens mission? That probe that spent years studying Saturn and its moons.
Yeah, of course. Sent back amazing pictures.
Tons of data, too, and some of those observations actually support this idea of an internally replenished atmosphere.
Okay, so this research helps explain some of that old data.
It does. And it also aligns with a theoretical model that was proposed back in 2019.
A model, like a prediction.
Yeah, a model of how Titan's atmosphere might work. And it basically said that, yep, Titan's atmosphere is probably being continuously replenished by gases coming from inside the moon itself.
So they were right on the money back then.
Seems so.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
It is. And there's another layer to this. That model also suggested that Titan's atmosphere, well, it hasn't always been this way.
What do you mean? Like it was different in the past?
Exactly.
Whoa, so this moon has a history.
It does.
It's not just static, it's changed over time.
Right, and that adds a whole new dimension to things, especially when we start thinking about the possibility of life on Titan.
Life, you mean in that ocean under the surface?
Exactly, that massive ocean hidden under all that ice.
Okay, hold on. We need to talk about that. What does this evolving atmosphere, what does all of this have to do with life?
Well, think about it. Life as we know it, it needs energy. Right? And here on Earth, most of that energy comes from the sun.
Right, photosynthesis and all that.
But Titan is freezing. It's so far from the sun that its surface is incredibly cold. And there's this thick haze blocking out most of the sunlight.
Okay, yeah, I remember reading about that.
So not exactly a sunbather's paradise.
Definitely not. But then how could anything survive in that ocean? If it's so deep down, no sunlight.
Well, if this whole theory about the atmosphere is correct, then the process that's replenishing the atmosphere, it's also generating heat.
Heat inside Titan?
Yeah, within the moon itself.
Whoa.
So the same forces that are keeping Titan's atmosphere from freezing solid, they could also be warming that subsurface ocean.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're saying that Even without direct sunlight, there could be enough heat down there for life to exist.
Exactly. Enough heat to make it habitable.
Now we're talking. But we're not talking about, like, aliens swimming around.
No, probably not little green men.
Okay, good.
Any life on Titan, it would have to be super tough. We're talking about an ocean that's likely a mix of water and ammonia.
Sounds lovely.
Buried under a thick layer of ice.
Yeah, not exactly a tropical paradise.
Right. And very little sunlight reaching it. So anything living there would have to be what we call an extremophile.
An extremophile. Like those things that live in, like, boiling hot springs.
Yeah.
Or in the deep ocean vents.
Exactly. Creatures that thrive in conditions that would kill most other life forms.
That's crazy. I mean, a moon so different from Earth could actually have life on it.
It's amazing, right? And it really makes you think about what's possible out there in the universe. That's Titan, a pretty exciting place to study.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, we can't forget about NASA's Dragonfly mission.
Yes, Dragonfly. Set to launch in 2028.
Right. And this one's going to be using a quadcopter to explore Titan.
Imagine that, a drone flying around on another moon.
It's going to be epic. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's go back to this idea that Titan's atmosphere has evolved over time.
Okay.
If it wasn't always this thick, this nitrogen-rich atmosphere, what does that mean for life? I mean, could life have even existed before?
That's a really good question. A thinner atmosphere would mean a much colder surface, way less insulation.
So even if there was an ocean back then, it might have been frozen solid.
It's possible. And if it was frozen, then, well, no chance of life as we know it.
Right, that makes sense.
But as the atmosphere thickened over millions of years and the nitrogen levels increased, that would have warmed things up.
So the ocean could melt.
Exactly, creating an environment that might be suitable for life.
So the evolution of Titan's atmosphere could have actually paved the way for life.
It's possible, which shows how dynamic these worlds are.
And how much their history really matters.
Absolutely.
This is all incredibly complex and fascinating.
Titan's a fascinating place.
Now I see why scientists are so captivated by it.
It's like a puzzle, and we're just starting to put the pieces together.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about Titan's dense atmosphere, how it's probably connected to that hidden ocean, and even touched on the possibility of life.
It's mind-blowing stuff.
It is, but let's bring this back to our listeners for a second.
Okay.
Why should we, here on Earth, care about a moon orbiting Saturn, millions and millions of miles away? What does all of this mean for us?
That's a great question. I think Titan shows us just how surprising the universe can be. It breaks all the rules.
It's like a cosmic wake-up call.
Exactly. Never stop exploring, never stop asking questions.
I like that.
And who knows, maybe someday Titan will teach us something truly incredible about how life begins, something that changes everything we thought we knew.
That would be mind-blowing. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with one last thought. We've talked about life in the ocean, but what about in the atmosphere itself?
Oh, interesting.
Could there be, like, aerial life forms floating around in those thick, hazy clouds?
Now, that's a question that really gets you thinking.
Right. I mean, Earth's atmosphere is full of microscopic life.
It is.
So why not Titan's? It's thick, it's got organic molecules.
It's not just a static blanket of gas, either. It's a dynamic system with complex chemistry happening all the time. Sunlight, gases interacting, all sorts of things going on.
Right. And we talked about how methane gets broken down by sunlight. What else is going on up there?
Well, those reactions could create all sorts of byproducts. Some scientists think those byproducts could actually be the building blocks of life.
Wow. So even if there aren't, like, alien creatures flying around,
right,
there could be the ingredients for life, just waiting for the right conditions.
It's a fascinating possibility.
It really is. Boggles the mind. What would life in Titan's atmosphere even look like? It would have to be totally different from anything on Earth.
Right. I mean, what could survive in that environment?
I'm picturing, like, microscopic balloons floating on the currents.
Harvesting energy from the chemicals in the atmosphere.
Yeah. Or maybe, like, aerial plankton just drifting on the wind.
Feeding on the molecules, swirling around them.
It's like something straight out of science fiction. And the best part is, we might not have to wait that long to find out if any of this is real.
You're talking about Dragonfly.
Yeah. Set to launch in 2028. And it's got instruments that could detect signs of biological activity, even in the atmosphere.
That's right.
So in just a few years, we might have an answer to the question, is there life in the skies of Titan?
It's incredible to think about.
It really is.
And even if Dragonfly doesn't find definitive proof of life,
right,
it's going to teach us so much about Titan's atmosphere.
Yeah.
We're bound to make some incredible discoveries.
Absolutely. Okay, let's bring this all together. We've explored Titan's crazy, dense, nitrogen-rich atmosphere and how it's probably connected to a potential underground ocean. We even talked about the wild idea of life in the skies.
A lot to unpack.
It was quite the deep dive.
We talked about how scientists are using experiments and models to figure out how the atmosphere keeps getting replenished, how it evolved over millions of years, and how all of that might have set the stage for life.
And then there's Dragonfly, which is going to revolutionize our understanding of this amazing moon.
Can't wait for 2028.
I know, right? But I think the biggest takeaway here is that Titan reminds us that the universe is full of surprises.
It really does.
Full of worlds that challenge our assumptions about what's possible. It expands our understanding of the cosmos.
Exactly.
There's so much out there left to discover.
We're just getting started.
We're just scratching the surface.
And who knows, maybe Titan holds the key to some of the universe's biggest secrets.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is.
So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the universe.
You never know what incredible wonders you might find.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up part 1 of our deep dive into Titan's atmosphere. Make sure to tune in for part 2, where we'll continue our exploration of this fascinating world. Until then, keep looking up.
See you next time. So, yeah, Titan's atmosphere, it's like that they had this whole evolution.
Okay, so this moon has a story.
It does, a history.
I mean, this is way more complex than I first thought.
Right. And when you think about the possibility of life on Titan, this whole history thing gets even more, well, more intriguing.
You're right. We can't forget about that massive ocean hiding under Titan's surface. What does all this mean for, well, for the possibility of life in that ocean?
Well, okay, think about it this way. Life as we know it, it needs energy to survive. Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
And here on Earth, that energy mostly comes from the sun.
Right, photosynthesis and all that.
Exactly. But Titan, well, Titan is a frigid world.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Its surface is incredibly cold, and it's shrouded in this thick haze. So sunlight is, well, it's pretty weak down there.
Okay, so where would that energy come from for life to exist in an ocean? I mean, an ocean deep beneath the surface.
Well, if we're right about Titan's atmosphere being replenished from its core, that process, that replenishing, it could also be generating a lot of heat within the moon.
So the same forces that are keeping Titan's atmosphere from freezing solid could also be warming that subsurface ocean. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And that heat could be the key to a habitable environment, even without, without direct sunlight.
Now we're talking. But we're not talking about little green men, right?
Uh-huh. Of course not.
Yeah.
Any life on Titan, it would have to be incredibly tough. We're talking about an ocean that's likely composed of water mixed with ammonia, buried under a thick layer of ice with very little sunlight. Life there would have to be, well, resilient. Probably using chemical energy sources rather than, photosynthesis.
So more like the extremophiles we find in Earth's most extreme environments, like those crazy creatures living around deep-sea hydrothermal vents.
Exactly. They thrive in conditions that would be lethal to most other life forms.
This is mind-blowing. I mean, a moon so different from our own could actually harbor life, even if it's not the kind of life we're used to seeing.
It really challenges our understanding of what's possible in the universe. And it's what makes Titan such an exciting place to explore.
Absolutely. Speaking of exploring, we've got to talk about NASA's Dragonfly mission. Launching in 2028, this mission is going to, well, take a much closer look at Titan's environment using a quadcopter.
Imagine that, a drone flying around on Titan. It's going to give us an incredible view of this fascinating world.
I know, it's going to be epic. Okay, but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to this idea of Titan's atmosphere evolving over time. What are the implications for life if Titan's atmosphere wasn't always as thick and nitrogen-rich as it is today?
Well, a thinner atmosphere would mean a much colder surface, much less insulation.
So even if there was a subsurface ocean back then, it might have been completely frozen solid, no chance of life as we know it.
Exactly. The conditions simply wouldn't have been suitable. But as the atmosphere thickened, over millions of years, and the nitrogen content increased, the surface would have warmed up, allowing that ocean to thaw,
creating a more hospitable environment for life to emerge. So the evolution of Titan's atmosphere might have actually set the stage for life.
It's possible. It highlights how dynamic these worlds are and how much their histories influence their potential for life.
This is all incredibly complex and fascinating. I can see why scientists are so captivated by Titan.
It's a world unlike any other in our solar system. holding countless secrets.
And the best part is we're only just beginning to unravel them.
We are.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, but I think it's time to bring this back to you, our listener. Why should you, here on Earth, care about a moon orbiting Saturn millions of miles away? What does all of this mean for you?
That's a great question. I think Titan is a reminder that our universe is, well, it's full of surprises. It's a world that defies our expectations and pushes the boundaries of, well, of what we think is possible.
It's like a cosmic wake-up call telling us to never stop exploring, never stop asking questions.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday Titan will teach us something truly profound about the origins of life itself, something that changes our understanding of, of our place in the cosmos.
That would be mind-blowing. Okay, but before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked about the possibility of life in Titan's subsurface ocean, but what about its atmosphere? Could there be some form of airborne life floating in those thick, hazy clouds?
Now, that's a question that really sparks the imagination.
I mean, it's a pretty wild thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know Earth's atmosphere is full of microscopic life.
It is.
So why not Titan's? It's thick and it's got organic molecules.
Well, what's really interesting is Titan's atmosphere, I mean, it's not just some static blanket of gas, It's dynamic, with complex chemical reactions happening all the time, driven by sunlight and the interaction of those gases.
You're right. We talked about how methane's constantly being broken down by sunlight.
Right.
What else is happening up there?
Well, those reactions, I mean, they could be creating all sorts of interesting byproducts. Some scientists even think that those reactions could be creating the building blocks of life,
Yeah.
Like as we know it.
So even if there aren't, like, full-blown alien beasties floating around up there,
Right?
there could be the precursors to life, just waiting for the right conditions.
Exactly, just waiting to emerge.
It really kind of boggles the mind.
It does, doesn't it? And it makes you wonder, I mean, what would life in Titan's atmosphere even look like? It would have to be something completely different from anything we've ever seen here on Earth.
Okay, I'm picturing something like, I don't know, like microscopic balloons just drifting around on the currents, harvesting energy from that chemical soup of the atmosphere.
Interesting. Or maybe something more like, aerial plankton carried by the winds, feeding on the organic molecules swirling around them.
It's like science fiction, and the coolest part is we might not have to wait that long to find out if any of this is actually happening.
You're talking about the Dragonfly mission.
Yep. Set to launch in 2028, and it's equipped with instruments that could detect signs of biological activity, even in the atmosphere.
It is, yeah. It's pretty amazing technology.
It is. So in just a few years, we could have an answer to this huge question, like, is there life floating around in the skies of Titan?
It's pretty incredible to think about.
It really is.
And even if Dragonfly doesn't find, definitive proof of life,
right.
It's bound to uncover so much new information about Titan's atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that'll just deepen our understanding of this really remarkable moon.
Absolutely. Okay, let's bring this all together one last time. We've explored Titan's incredibly dense, nitrogen-rich atmosphere and talked about how it's probably connected to that potential underground ocean. We even entertained the possibility of life in the skies of Titan.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've gone deep.
We have. We've seen how scientists are using experiments and models to try to put together the pieces of how Titan's atmosphere keeps getting replenished, how it's evolved over millions of years, and how all of that might have set the stage for life, as we know it.
And we can't forget about the groundbreaking Dragonfly mission, launching in just a few years, which is going to completely change the way we think about this alien world.
Yeah, Dragonfly is going to be huge.
It is. But if we zoom out for a sec, I think the biggest takeaway for me, and hopefully for all of you listening, is that Titan reminds us that the universe is full of surprises.
It really is.
Full of worlds that challenge our assumptions about what's possible, about what's out there. It really expands our understanding of the cosmos,
It does. It makes you realize how much we don't know.
Exactly. There's still so much out there left to discover.
We're just getting started.
We really are. We're just scratching the surface.
And who knows, maybe Titan holds the key to unlocking some of the universe's biggest secrets.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is.
So to all of you listening out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the universe. You never know what incredible wonders you might find out there.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's a wrap for our deep dive into Titan's atmosphere. We hope you enjoyed this journey with us. Until next time, keep looking up.
See you next time.